Can we hear me? Oh, yeah. Hi. Thank you so much for coming. Applause, applause. Thank you for showing up. I'm Jeanette Staley. I'm an artist and activist. I live in Gageville. And I am one of the 3 organizers for this event. I'm going to use my notes. Sorry. So thank you to Grace Warrius and Marianne McCardle for helping to make this happen. Yes. I'm here as a co-founder with Michelle Boslin of the Humanity Network, which is a group of local friends who work toward a more egalitarian society through creative communication. We foster the Chalkboard Project that asks a question each week of the community at the Flatiron Co-op and the Moondog Cafe. We organize Listen Up at the Opera House and most recently a talent share at the Butterfield Institute in Westminster. Want to join us? Talk to me later. We need more people. The reason we are here now is that in the US, 1847 began the campaign to criminalize abortion with Dr. Horatio Storer. When abortion was a crime, Leslie Reagan chronicles how he and other doctors, medical students, and faculty from Harvard Med School wanted to keep women out of the colleges and the medical profession. They organized and quickly joined forces with clergy, legislators, and police forces to criminalize abortion, laws of which are still codified in many states. There's lots more to read about this. See me later for a bibliography. And I hope you will. But my point is that anti-abortion legislation, less than 200 years old, has always been about maintaining hierarchical patriarchy. These laws were dangerous to women. Literally, countless women died. These laws are about controlling women, always, and full stop. They are always dangerous to women. Women and their allies worked to create protection for safe abortions in 1973. Sorry. And we will do it again, hopefully with stronger legislation. Sorry. Rallies and protests did not create change in the 19th century, but it was a starting point. We don't write policy here, but it is important to gather because we can see that we're not alone. This is your charge, to replace this centuries-long patriarchal culture with a humane and egalitarian system. It's time for a paradigm shift. So here are your 4 next steps. Right now, I ask you to look at the persons near you. These are your allies. Remember, when they marginalize one of us, they marginalize all of us. 2, we need everyone and everything right now. Artists, musicians, poets, and writers. We need your voices through art. That is the artist's prerogative and our social contract. If you're a teacher, teach. If you're an organizer, organize. If you are willing to run for office, run. If you're good at spreadsheets, offer that in service to challenging the patriarchy. 3, if you're an administrator in housing, healthcare, education, manufacturing, or law and law enforcement, or you're a passionate advocate for the environment, voting integrity, gun legislation, or social justice, consider these problems from a feminist perspective. Assure that no one is harmed and that it benefits those who are intended to benefit. Ask how patriarchy is supported and how it benefits from the system and work to change it. And 4, vote. If nothing else, vote. If you can, learn about the people running, talk to them in person, take someone with you to the polls. There's going to be a voter registration table on Canal Street so that you can vote out the patriarchy. Woo! Yeah. Okay. Finally, I want to recognize that I am most comfortable speaking on a canvas. Public speaking is outside of my comfort zone, and as it turns out, this is true for some of the others I've invited to speak as well. Of course, it is absurd that any of us should need to speak in public about the fact of our existence and the expectation of our autonomy and safety, but here we are, compelled to argue for our experience and our lives. So I am grateful to Phyllis Rosser, Grace Warriors, and Leslie Goldman for sharing their voices here too. So the first person that's going to speak is Phyllis.
Great, thank you. Hang on, Phyllis. Hang on. Hi, I'm Phyllis Rosser. I'm a sculptor. I live up there in the firehouse, and I get the wood I use below the dam here in Bellows Falls. And I've been doing this for, I don't know, over 30 years. I was born in 1934, in the middle of the Depression. Roosevelt was president, and I went to high school and college in the 1950s. The only thing I knew about not having children was abstinence. We didn't have any pills or IUDs, and there were condoms, but I never saw one. If any woman got pregnant, usually she was so shamed. She didn't tell her friends. She didn't sometimes even tell her parents. She may have found a place where she could go and take a long vacation. And then she put the child up for adoption and came back and maybe didn't tell anybody. Then there were other women who found back alley abortions, abortionists who would do the procedure without anesthetic. And there were other women who tried to self-abort, and many women died. I was married in 1957. I was, at that time, allowed to be fitted for a diaphragm. You could not have a diaphragm unless you were married, which I find now very strange. Anyway, this was a strange little object, round thing that you had a little rubber bag on it, and you put spermicide on it and stuck it in under your pubic bone and hoped for the best. And it worked pretty well for me for 15 years. I had 3 children. And as I had my 3rd child in 1972, I was allowed to have my tubes tied. But I couldn't do that unless my husband and my doctor signed a permission form that said that I could have a tubal ligation. I was mortified, but I was also happy that I didn't have to worry about pregnancy anymore. I was almost 40. And women in my particular class, middle class, were not supposed to work after they had children. They were supposed to feel fulfilled, raising a family and doing volunteer work. But I was now just dying to have a career. And when I had a 1-year-old child, I went to see my friend Gloria Steinem, we had roomed together in college, so we were old friends. And I said, I want to volunteer at Ms. Magazine. Ms. was just a year old at that point. And she said volunteering was against everything that she believed in. It was the way women were used to do work without pay. But I talked her into it. And so she let me come in one day. I went in 1 day a week. But I had a 1-year-old. I had to take a bus ride for an hour in, an hour back from New York. So I had to find childcare, but at that time there was no childcare. There were no places where you could drop off your child and pick them up later. So I made a lot of phone calls, and I finally found a woman who was probably grandmotherly, and she said she would come 1 day a week if I get her home in time to make her dinner for her husband at 6 o'clock. So I would pick her up at 8 o'clock in the morning and then drop her off at my house, and then I would rush to the bus and rush into New York, and I'd get in about 9:30. And then about 4:15, I would do the whole thing backwards and rush to get the bus and get back so I could drive her home in time for her to do that 6 o'clock dinner. This went on for several years. It was certainly not an ideal situation. When I got in the morning, most of the editors hadn't come into Ms. yet, and when I left, they were just sort of settling down after being on the phone all day and deciding what they would put in the magazine the next day or week, and I was gone. But I managed to keep it up, and I ended up being a writer and a contributing editor to Ms. for 8 years. And I would say that.
Thank you.
Ms. saved my life, really. In 1973, after Roe was passed, the war started on all the Planned Parenthoods and in the other places that were doing abortions. And I remember getting up at 6 in the morning on Saturdays and going down to my local Planned Parenthood and keeping anti-choicers from pouring glue into the locks and trying to, help the women who were coming in because they were being harassed by the anti-choice people outside. And this has just gone on. And I can't believe that they have actually finally won this battle. Of course, I understand the political reasons for it, but you've all got to organize. You've got to do what you can to get your freedom and your dignity back. You just can't let us be dragged back into the 1950s. Thanks.
Hi everybody, my name is Grace Warrius. I'm a rising senior at the high school here. And I just want to thank you all for taking time out of your days to come here. My main point of what I want to say is more targeted to the youth here. But I'm sure you've all heard the saying, youth are the future, and I just want to challenge that idea just a little bit. You see, we're not only the future, we're the past and the present too. Looking back historically, youth have been at the forefront of some major political and social movements, such as the Civil Rights Movement. Here we are today, in the present, taking a stand against injustices, and I know we will continue to fight for what's right and stand against injustices in the many years to come. So I just want to let you know that you're not just the future. You can do things now, and you can look back at the examples in the past. That's really my main point, and I just want to thank you again for coming here today. It really means a lot to see so many people here.
That's good. Great. Hi, everybody. My name is Leslie Goldman, and I represent the town of Rockingham in the state legislature. Thank you. Thank you. I had the opportunity this past June to attend an event celebrating the awarding of a National Park Service grant to study the Abenaki living right here at Great Falls and the petroglyphs that mark their presence. The many presentations were compelling, but I was struck by a piece of information that was new to me. People have been living here where we are standing for more than 12,000 years. Taking that one step further, women have been living here, bearing children, and many dying, bearing those children for 12,000 years. There's a great river of women who have come before us. Some of our ancestors are from this area, and others, like my grandmother, took great risk to leave Tsar's depression to come here. I am here because of the bravery and courage of the women that came before me. It is now time to take our place in that great river of women in Vermont and protect them now and into the future. After a 4-year deliberative process involving 2 successive bienniums, the Reproductive Liberty Amendment will be on the ballot for voters on November 8th as Article 22. The amendment reads, Section 2, Article 22 of Chapter 1 of the Vermont Constitution is added to read, Article 22, Personal Reproductive Liberty, quote, An individual's right to personal reproductive autonomy is central to the liberty and dignity to determine one's own life course and will not be denied or infringed unless justified by compelling state interest achieved by the least restrictive means. End quote. This simple and clear statement allows all people to make life choices regarding having children and creating a family without interference from anyone, including the state. There have been many misstatements made about the application of this amendment. Perhaps the most egregious one is to say that it will allow for the killing of fetuses in the late term. This is simply not true. The University of Vermont Medical Center is the only place in Vermont where abortions beyond 18 weeks can be performed. They have very clear ethical policies and processes to deal with these heartbreaking situations where there is no hope for the survival of the fetus or clear danger to the mother. It is only in these situations where a termination of pregnancy is allowed. Shaky hands. Or not. Let's see if I can get there. Thank you. Yay, Louise, always on my side.
Need help?
It'll get there. I just have to be patient. That can go away. There we go. Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that. This amendment ensures that a decision about terminating a pregnancy remains between a woman, her medical support team, and her family. It's not a decision for the government to make, period. Another misstatement is that should this amendment pass, it could never be changed. Again, this is not true. Amending the Constitution is a multi-year process for a reason, to make sure that it is done only with considered thought and discussion. It can certainly happen again and would require going through the same arduous process as we went through with Article 22. Although there is a statute that protects the right to abortion, that right is vulnerable to action by a single state legislature. This amendment will protect us from that danger. So join me, celebrating the great river of women in the past, present, and future, in supporting Article 22. Ballots would be mailed to all Vermont voters at the end of September or vote in person on November 8th. Thanks to you all. And please, pass the word. Vote yes on the Reproductive Liberty Amendment.
Thanks again to all of you for coming out. We really appreciate the support. I'm going to tell you our parade route right now. We're going to head out of the parking lot and take a right, walk through the island and around into the square. We'll walk up to the farmer's market. We'll come back down to the square and down Main Street and down Canal Street and back to the Waypoint Center. Please try to stay on the sidewalks to the best of your ability. And we have a lot of noisemakers here if you're so inclined to play along with the wonderful people that have come to help us out with some samba music. Thank you so much for coming, Julian Gernstein and Ron, I forget your last name, but anyway, all of you, thanks so much for coming, and please play along and let's go!
Grab signs. Who's gonna?